Hi, I'm Aaron Marcus, and welcome back to the Acting and Modeling Success Summit. We have a really special guest. His name is Stephen Nash, and let me read to you a little bit from his bio. He's a talent manager and producer, and he's located in Beverly Hills, and his clients have done everything from international print campaigns, starring on TV series, feature films, and actually, Stephen used to be an actor, still a union member. He's a coach. He was a director in New York, and he was also the former president of the Talent Managers Association. And he's also currently developing a comedic feature film called Rich Kids that you're going to be hearing a whole lot about in the near future. So, Stephen, thank you so much for being a part of the summit.
Thank you. I'm very glad to be here. I've known you for a long time. It's great to visit again.
Well, thank you. So, what I want to ask you first, I mean, everybody has heard of agents, everybody's heard of managers. Most people really don't have a clue as to exactly what a manager does. So, I was hoping you could kind of shed some light on that for us.
Well, sure. When people ask what's the difference between a manager and an agent, the joke answer is a manager cares. But,
I'm
but
sure that will
everyone
thrill all
cares.
the agents who are going to be part of this event.
Everyone cares. That's just a joke. But um, today, most actors, particularly above a certain level, have a manager. The high-end agencies, by my experience, expect it. The agent cares about everything, but they're focusing mostly on pursuing the audition. That's just their main focus. The manager is concerned about all things, including getting auditions, getting jobs, and is very specifically focusing, a good manager anyway, on what the actor needs, their development artistically, the financial goals, sometimes spiritual goals, problem solving. Many a time an agent will uh, contact me and just say, deal with this. I mean, they depend on managers to provide a lot of value to the team. And in the end, I see the manager and the actor as partners. And generally, the manager relationship is a long-term one.
And so basically, it sounds like the manager is like a great parent, somebody who really is looking out for the best interest of that specific person.
Yeah, that's true. Though I'm too young to be a parent to most of my teen clients, but the um, it's for me. I feel like I do the old-fashioned kind of management in which it's personal talent management. It's very close, and speak to my clients almost daily. I'm always available. I am not what I call a backdoor agent. Some managers are just doing what they submitting, even though that's not necessarily proper, but everyone does it from what I can tell. Um, I work with every aspect of my clients. I pay attention to every detail. I continually speak with them to see what they're thinking and feeling and needing, and for our mutual benefit.
So, like for instance, let's say one of your talent goes out to audition for a feature film. Uh, it sounds like you would be the person that the actor could sit down with afterwards and say, okay, so this is what I thought went well. Some things really didn't feel right, for me about this. It seems like that's not necessarily something that they would be doing with their agent necessarily, but it sounds like, for a great manager, that would be an appropriate conversation.
Oh, you're right on that one because that is at the top of my job description, and to be that connected with the client, whether it's an actor, model, or singer, that connected with their career and the moment to moment. Um, I also coach my actors. I don't, I'm an acting coach from long back, and I don't charge my clients for anything. I just work on commission. And I ask my clients to always reach me right after an audition. And there's many reasons for that. Certainly, getting a feel for what happened is important just for learning for the future, how best to focus my client. Also, Sometimes I need to do some sort of aggressive follow-up. Sometimes I hear from casting or from the agent regarding that audition, so I need a point of view. So communicating after an audition is very important. Then on an educational level, I always ask my clients, if you had it to do over again, what would you possibly do? Because I'm always into training and growing. So yes, you're right.
Now, would you consider yourself really more of a unique kind of manager in the sense that you are an actor? Do you
Yeah.
find that most managers have that kind of skill and that kind of background so that the talent can sit down and talk with them from a technical point of view, what took place?
I think I'm somewhat unique. I mean, there's many an actor who's become a manager. I have a deep classical acting, directing training from New York. I studied for many years with Stella Adler, the late great, and I think that that's something special that perhaps I bring to the equation.
Now, would it be unusual for you to actually call a casting director and say, hey, look, I just started working with somebody recently. I want to find out, could you give me some feedback?
I have a lot of tight casting director relationships. And these days, if there's many casting offices are so intensely busy, they're not real enthused to take time to give feedback necessarily, like perhaps when you and I were sweet young things acting. Little calmer days, way back there, back in the '90s, right?
For
Uh,
chiseling the hieroglyphs in the caves, and you
yeah,
could send
but
smoke signals to find out feedback from the audition.
oh yeah, I'm always hungry to get feedback when I can get it. Now sometimes the feedback is the intern to the assistant to the associate to the casting director looks at the notes and says, oh, we went a different direction, which isn't quite news if you didn't get the part. But getting feedback from casting is so useful, and so I always want it if I can get it.
But you're saying that, like, in today's time, unless something horrific takes place, you're probably not going to hear much about it.
Well, not all. I mean, sometimes we can get feedback. I'm always laughing when I'm at around a group of actors, like at a party, and I hear them talking about how all the feedback they get on every audition. I'm thinking, gosh, I wish I knew where that was happening. You can get feedback, and I mean, casting directors generally they're artists, they're directors, and they their opinion, just their subjective point of view, is very valuable, and they're as helpful as they can within their time abilities, I'm sure.
Now, I'm curious when you want to submit one of your talent to an audition. Typically, you would go through the agent and have the agent actually submit the person to the casting director.
Well, agents do submission. I do a lot of promotion. I'm often on a daily basis promoting my clients to specific casting offices.
And so, let's say in the best case scenario, and your client books the job, who from casting, who would they call? Would they call you first, or would they call the agent first?
The protocol is to have the casting person calls the agent, and that's great. Um, Sometimes they're calling me for whatever reason. They know me personally. It's complicated, and they want it. They know they can reach me very directly. Unlike many managers in New York and LA, I have very few clients. So um, people who I work with know that they can get to me easily, that I can get right on things a lot of the time, and so sometimes they call me directly. But the normal thing is they call the agent, and it processes.
Now, okay. Now I know that it's the agent's job to actually negotiate, but I'm assuming that as the manager, you can talk to the agent and say, for instance, if it's a TV series, you can say, well, my client's not going to accept less than $20,000 to, be on this particular show. But then it's up to the agent to actually negotiate that one out.
Officially and under the license of the agent, they are the head of a negotiation. In practice, that is, they still are the point person. I get deeply involved because my job description is to pay meticulous attention to money and terms. Terms are often as important or more important than the money, and I mean, there's a lot of terms that are involved, especially.
Actually, that's interesting. Could you just maybe just give us one general kind of term that might, come up for discussion for a TV series?
Well, on a TV series, I mean, this is a longer discussion. You know that typically when you're being offered what might be called a screen test, meaning a final audition for a series, they don't say, "Hey, you got the job. How much do you want?" They say, "If we can come to terms on money and money and details, then we will give you this final audition." And they're seeing other people. They don't necessarily tell you how many, and they all might have different deals than you. But you go into that final audition, and it's never the final audition, by the way. After the final audition, be prepared for five more. But really, you know this, Aaron.
Sure.
The So you go into it, and if so, you're giving them like on a series, you will be asked needed for the most part to give a 7-year option deal to the producers. And what this says is they have the right but not the obligation to use you for the pilot under the money and terms negotiated. And that money includes the holding deal, which is the time in which you can't take anything that would conflict with that job if it did go ahead to series. In, say, the 3 months after you shoot it, while they see if NBC is going to buy it and put it on the air. And then they have the right but not the obligation to use you for the series and at certain terms. And the right but not the obligation to use you each succeeding year. And within the terms, and I'm keep this brief and end it, but like in the first year, how many episodes are you guaranteed? You're on a series. They're not necessarily saying every single one. I had a client starring on a series on Fox for 3 years, and his guarantee was 7 episodes out of 13, meaning if they did more, they paid him for more, but if they did less, they still paid him for that 7. In the end, he was in like 12 to 13, so we can, was giving much more money than the minimum terms of the contract. So certainly when a client does a free job, a deferred pay job, which is all the time these days because of the way SAG contracts may have gone and the necessities and importance of building a career. But still, there's terms. Besides the dates involved, I want to know what the billing is, the screen credit. And that's very important because
Actually, would you explain screen credit?
well, when screen credit meaning where's your name appearing? Is it appearing at the beginning? And if it's appearing at the beginning before the show starts, the head credits, the main titles, is it single card by yourself? Is it shared card? What order is that in? And then of course there's the crawl at the end when the names go by. And you're in the crawl always, I would think. But main title credit's a whole other thing. And if we're doing something with deferred pay, then the credit better be to our satisfaction because that's maybe all we get in the end besides experience, exposure, film to use on our reel.
And so that's why having a manager would be essential because I'm assuming typically that's not something that the agent is all that incredibly concerned about, or at least
Yeah,
not nearly as much as the manager is.
the agent cares about everything, but they're not going to put time into worrying about a minor detail of a non-paying job. I don't think so.
Sure. So, like for instance, when you were talking about, you really have a very select few group of people that you manage.
Right.
What would you say is, an average amount of talent that a smaller management company would actually work with?
Numbers?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I max out at 20, and I have staff. Though right now we're handling 10, and it's a whole other subject. Why we can get into why we handle people or why we don't. But um, I've seen management companies with into the thousands and
Thousands.
thousands. That's amazing.
It's that personal touch.
And is that personal management? I don't. It's something. It's something else. It's something else, by my opinion.
So would you say, like on the average, a smaller management company might have anywhere between, 10, 20, 25, 30 people max that they're going to be managing?
Well, one would hope. Um, I'm. I don't currently know anybody who has as few clients as I have at the level I'm at, but and I'm always interested in new clients, but they have to be right on a lot of levels, and we can talk about that if you like.
We
So
actually, oh, I'm sorry, didn't mean to interrupt. Go ahead.
I was just going to say that I'm taking a walk on the wild side because many managers and agencies uh, survive, prosper because they play a numbers game, and it's not that they don't want to be the highest standards. They have many, and they see who's going to be the moneymaker. For me, all my clients have to be in time. I'm patient, but they all have to. They all have to succeed in a significant way.
And actually, would you share with everybody what the percentage is that managers take from their clients' bookings?
Okay. Now, again, I work in commission only, and the the interest, the commissions range from 10 to 20, and it's different people, different things. I think it's pretty common, specific, especially for with developmental actors with no credits and starting out, in which you need the manager to do so many, many, many things, and with a lesser chance of there's never any guarantees, but certainly an actor comes to me and they have a solid career in place. It's going to be different than someone just arriving in LA and something like that. But I do 15.
Yeah, I
And
mean
of course,
that's
you know that according to IRS parameters to this moment in my life, that's considered a business expense. So that's a write-off of your taxes, and so that you're not paying all that money. And this is the only profession I can any profession I can think of where you can bring in an executive team, your manager and your agent, and you don't pay them unless or until money comes in. So it's a good deal for the actors, I think, in that respect.
and it's funny because sometimes I've spoken with actors who say, I'm paying my manager 15% because they're in the union, they're paying their agent a 10% commission fee. I mean, I'm
Or for
spending,
print, they're paying 20 to their print agent.
right, but I'm talking about for SAG actors who are getting
Yeah,
union acting gigs, it's the 10%. And they're saying,
yeah.
I can't believe I've got to pay 25%, commission fee before, any of the taxes are taken out. And I guess that's one way to view it. And the way that I would view it is, hey, you're making 75% of a job that you probably never would have gotten if you didn't have representation.
Oh, yeah. And as my clients get into higher levels, it gets very, very complex in terms of what I need to pay attention to. And you think trying to break a career in would be the hardest thing, and it is at a certain level because unless you get some momentum going, some base credits, it's very hard to keep breaking through because we know that a casting director is maybe get for a little part may get 10 to 20,000 submissions. They're going to see what 20 to 200 people,
Wait,
and
you're not exaggerating with those numbers?
well, maybe it feels like it.
I
It
mean, I have heard in the thousands.
I
You
don't think
know,
10,000 is going crazy at all. But I've heard these kinds of numbers from casting many a time.
yeah.
But certainly the manager earns his money working for free until the career is really happening, and then the work increases. on a more executive and well-paid level. Even actors who come to me for management and brought bookings that are coming up on with them, and you know brought me in on them, which is necessary, but they wanted to do that because they wanted to encourage me, and they certainly wanted me to service that. But even in that circumstance, a good manager is earning his money up and down. Minor example: a client on a series. While he was on location, they had him throw in one line for a different episode he wasn't in, for a little insert that already been. He wasn't in that episode, but they were doing just a one-liner talking on the telephone, and his agent, his business manager, nobody caught it but me. He was owed another $50,000 because that constituted an episode, and he was paid per episode.
Wow.
So that client made a big profit on me. Forget the value of my work and the value of the work that I wasn't paid for. He made a profit on me just from that one job.
That's incredible. Hey, Steve, I'm going to wind this up because I know we have a number of questions that I definitely want to get to. So let me just see what came in. Oh, here we go. Okay, so this is from Rodney in Atlanta, and he wants to know, are there many managers outside of the major markets? And if so, is it necessary for me to have both a manager and an agent?
Almost two questions there. In the big city, if you're starting out, if you can get a good manager, which could be hard, then I think it's your lucky day, because there's somebody who's going to be working for you on spec for free until things happen. And but when you talk about small markets, I find that there's such a small amount of work relative to New York and Los Angeles that we tend to see a company doing everything. They're doing casting, they're doing agenting, they're doing management, and
Payroll.
you
They're
have to be
paymasters
careful.
sometimes.
Yeah, in smaller markets, it's not quite the same setup in terms of what works for building the career. You often find of the two companies in your town, in your medium-sized city that has representation. Whatever their deal is what you consider. If you're in St. Louis and you're looking for a manager and an agent, I've visited there. I've never lived there, but it doesn't seem like it could be something that you would do.
Okay. Okay, great. Actually, this is somebody from your hometown. If I wanted to get a manager, what's the best way to find and introduce myself to them? This is from Carrie in Ohio.
Oh, Ohio, yeah. Okay. Well, I think, again, related to what I just said,
But how about if they are moving to a major market?
they aren't. So what I would do, of course, each city has its own analysis we might do. I would see who are the players in terms of talent representation in that town. Um, when I grew up in Cleveland, um, there were two or three what I call players. Today, I think there's more like five. So as opposed to hundreds and hundreds in New York and LA, but so I would target them and see what they're about, what their rep is, what their parameters are.
But how about if they were going to move to LA or New York?
Oh,
How would you
okay.
recommend?
Going to move to LA. Okay. Um, Certainly, people sometimes say, "Why do you need a manager if you don't have a career to manage?" Well, that's true. Why would a manager want you? Unless they're into giving away their services. I mean, I do I do private coaching and career counseling, and that's a whole different ballgame. But for me to sign somebody, I need to see a whole variety of things, which we can talk about or next time.
But
Uh,
I just mean as far as if they were going to start searching for a manager in LA or New
well,
York, what would
one
be the
place to
process?
start in Los Angeles is to look at the membership list of the Talent Managers Association, which was formed in 1954 and is quite dedicated to the highest ethics. Never charge for services. I mean, very good starting point because there's some good people there who have been vetted. Been to get in, you have to go through a whole process of on that. I think that See, this is a long answer. That's why I'm kind of stumbling here. It depends on your approach. You don't get one in advance. It doesn't. I mean, yes, there are many people who do these big mega showcases, and it's true. I have occasionally found someone wonderful, and even though they're green as green could be, I've gotten on board. Um, but certainly, you would want to wait till you get to Los Angeles. You do a lot of research, not just on managers, but on what you're going to do. I would say, if it was like a friend, I would say, come here, uh, get into classes, so your training's starting to happen. Try to choose some teachers whose names are meaningful, marquee value, and start submitting the hell on student films and anything more you can find, and get some basis before you start submitting yourself to managers.
Yeah, that's a great point. And when you were just talking about networking, there's no better way of just finding out, not only for managers, but for agents as well, is
Yeah.
talking to other actors in the class and talking to the instructors, and certain names will start popping up. It doesn't mean you're ready to meet with them, but at least you'll start knowing who some of the bigger players are.
I'd like to say that so many times young actors uh, jump to get any sort of manager or agent, and they go back to their roommate saying, "Ha ha, I have my career's happening, yours isn't." Subtly, but it's a fool's paradise because having an agent, having a manager doesn't mean you have a career. It means you're tied up with somebody. So you have to look at these things very objectively. Is this a relationship that can really be right for you, or is it just something that makes you feel good about something happening?
That's a very good point. I want to try to squeeze one more quick question in. This is from Garrett in Australia.
Oh,
Uh, Garrett wants to know, he lives far from LA. Is it possible to potentially audition for a manager online? Is that something you've ever experienced?
um, I have been auditioned online, um, but one was a star in a Bali star with big credits. I had met an Australian man in the U.S. and he went back to Australia and we communicated that way. But why would a manager be interested in somebody in Australia unless there was something specifically marketable in Hollywood in a real way now? The person's not here. Does this person have a visa? Does this person have significant credits and training? I
Well,
don't see where that could.
excuse me, I'm just kind of assuming that this person was planning on moving to Los Angeles, but wanted to know if they could possibly find a manager prior to going to LA, you know,
I
via
don't.
Skype.
I don't see. I'm sure people do. I don't see how it could work. I don't see why a manager. I mean, this is hard thing to say, but I don't see why this manager on Skype would go would they might say, yeah, I'll take a meeting, but see, that's not how it's done. I'm sure people do it. Anything you or I could say from years of experience, someone does the opposite and becomes a movie star. But and someone wins the lotto too. But I think submitting to managers from far away, yes, and if they want to talk to you on Skype or something, fine. But the concept of auditioning for them and someone saying, "Oh yes, I'll sign you," I don't get it unless they're just collecting lots of people or selling something. I don't
Yeah,
get
so
it.
so basically, it sounds like it would be a good way to introduce themselves and then set up a meeting, and then they would come and sit down and talk with the manager, and then if they're going to move there, then you could take it from there.
Yeah, that can work. I get submissions from all over the world. I actually just met with a beautiful woman, 18 to play younger, from China. That so anything's possible, but getting into a good manager can be very hard.
Sure, that makes sense. Steve, I know I have to wrap this up. I want to thank you so much for
Sure.
being a part of this event. For people who want to reach you, whether it's to find out more about your movie, Rich Kids, or just to
Okay.
find out more about you, what is the best way for them to get a hold of you?
I'm happy to take emails. Let's use info, I-N-F-O, at nashim.com, and I'll spell that. N as in November, A-S-H-I-A-M as in mother, nashim.com. But please put in the subject line very clearly that they're contacting from this. I get hundreds of emails almost daily, so I need a lot of subject lines in there.
Great.
And
Stephen, thank you so much.
I want to thank you very much. It's such a pleasure to chat with you, and I'd be happy to visit again.
Sounds great.